told you life was about survival. Wake up, work, consume, comply, sleep, repeat. They said, do the right thing. Play it safe. Fit in. Follow the path, and you'll be fine. But fine is a coffin with velvet lining. Fine is a leash made of comfort. And fine is exactly how they want you. Numb enough to obey. Blind enough to never ask why. And exhausted enough to never escape. Because if you ever stopped and actually looked around, you'd see it. You'd feel it. The quiet ache in your bones. The silent scream buried beneath your smile. Something is missing. They told you what to believe, but never let you question the system that planted those beliefs. They trained you how to answer, but never taught you how to ask the right questions. And the biggest lie they fed you? That you are powerless. Just another gear in the machine. Another number in the algorithm. Another soul meant to sleepwalk through a life you never chose. But something inside you rebelled, didn't it? Maybe it started as a whisper. A faint itch in the back of your mind. A sense that you were made for more. More than just survival. More than just quiet suffering dressed up as responsibility. Deep down, you knew something didn't add up. The math was wrong. The path was broken. And if you kept walking it, you'd end up living a life that wasn't yours. Dying a death that wasn't earned. So now you're here. Not by chance. Not by luck. But because something in you refused to stay asleep. Now it's time to break the illusion. Rip the comfort blanket off your eyes and stare into the abyss without flinching. Because hidden in that darkness, in the silence they try to drown out with noise, is the truth. The brutal, unfiltered, terrifying truth about who you really are and what you were always meant to become. This is not about feeling good. It's about becoming good enough to feel nothing. When pain comes, when the world burns, when everything you thought you were dissolves. This is not comfort. This is confrontation, not motivation, transformation. You didn't come here for a pep talk. You came to shatter your limits, to face your own reflection without fear, to bleed for a version of yourself the world forgot to tell you existed. So descend with me, into the dark, into the layers of yourself they never taught you to explore. Because beneath the surface, beneath the trauma, the lies, the conditioning, is raw, blinding power. And if you're willing to face it, to endure the storm instead of run from it, you'll rise with something no school, no job, no religion ever gave you. Vision, clarity, an unshakable fire. Because this world doesn't need more sleepwalkers. It needs warriors, architects, creators of reality, souls who remember where they came from and why they're here. These are the 6 levels of consciousness. And once you understand them, once you feel them, you will never see the world the same way again. Because you'll no longer be a prisoner in someone else's game. You'll be the one who writes the code. Level 1. The Sleepwalker. This is where most people exist. Not live. Exist. They breathe, but feel nothing. They speak, but say nothing. They move, but go nowhere. They're not dead, but they're not alive either. They exist in a hollow space, a limbo between who they are and who they could have been. This level is the domain of the unconscious, of the programmed, of those who have traded awareness for convenience, freedom for routine. The sleepwalker wakes up every morning to an alarm they didn't set, follows a schedule they didn't create, to chase goals they don't understand, in a life they never questioned. They call it normal. They call it adulthood. They call it being realistic. But there's nothing real about it. It's a performance, a well-rehearsed act, one designed to keep them in line, quiet, compliant, and controllable. They eat what they're advertised, believe what they're told, and fear what they're trained to fear. They never ask why, because why is dangerous. Why threatens to collapse the house of lies they've built around their identity. So instead, they distract themselves with dopamine, with drama, with scrolling, shopping, and shallow conversations. Anything to avoid silence. Because silence reveals the truth. And the truth is, they're asleep. Not physically, but spiritually, mentally, consciously. They've mistaken noise for life, stimulation for purpose, and routine for meaning. They're terrified of being different, so they choose to be invisible. They never rebel, because rebellion requires energy. They never evolve, because evolution demands pain. And pain, to the sleepwalker, is the ultimate threat. So they numb it, sedate it, hide from it. They sleep beside their dreams every night, and kill them every morning with doubt and delay. But here's the most tragic part. They don't even know they're asleep. Because the world around them is asleep too. A mass hypnosis, masked as modern life. They don't notice the chains, because everyone's wearing the same ones. They don't feel the cage, because it's decorated with comfort and convenience. They call you crazy for wanting more. But the truth is, you've started to wake up, and once you do, there is no going back. No more pretending. No more sleepwalking through someone else's idea of success. But waking up comes with a price. You'll lose people. You'll lose illusions. You'll lose the fake comfort that kept you small. But what you gain is worth every scar. Because the moment you question the script, the moment you ask yourself, what if this isn't all there is? You begin the descent out of darkness. The sleepwalker doesn't know they're lost, but you do, and that changes everything. So if you've heard the whisper, if the numbness no longer comforts you, if the mask you wear feels heavier by the day, you're not broken, you're awakening. And the first step is this: refuse to go back to sleep, because the world will beg you to. They'll tempt you with comfort, mock you with doubt, threaten you with isolation. But those are the signs you're on the right path. You were never meant to stay at level 1. You were meant to escape it, burn it down, and rise from the ashes of who you were told to be. Only then can you move to the next level, the rebel. Level 2, the rebel. Congratulations. You've woken up. But now you're furious. The veil has been torn. The illusion shattered. And what's left? Anger. Because you've realized your life was never really yours. That most of what you believed, wanted, and feared was programmed into you, not chosen by you. You were sold a system, a formula, a dream soaked in deception. And now that you see it for what it is, you want to burn it down. This is the rebel phase. It's explosive, it's chaotic, and it's necessary. You begin to question everything: authority, religion, culture, society, even your own family. You stop saying yes to things that drain you. You stop pretending to agree just to keep the peace. You stop tolerating fake smiles and shallow rituals. Because now, you've tasted something more potent than comfort. You've tasted truth. But don't mistake this phase for enlightenment. It isn't. The rebel is not free yet. They're just finally awake enough to see the bars of the cage. And so they lash out. They push people away. They cut ties. They break everything they once held sacred. It feels like power. But often, it's pain in disguise. Because when you realize you've been lied to, you don't just lose trust in the world. You lose trust in yourself. You begin to doubt your past, your choices, your identity. You feel betrayed by everything. And that betrayal turns to rage. So you become a demolisher, smashing everything that feels fake, craving authenticity, even if it comes through fire. And yet, rebellion without direction is still slavery. You're not free just because you scream louder. You're not awake just because you reject the old. If you don't build something new, you're still controlled, just in reverse. You've escaped one prison, yes, but you've built another. One made of defiance, distrust, and loneliness. And the danger of this level is that many never leave it. They become addicted to the war, addicted to being against everything, because it gives them identity. It gives them certainty. But truth? Truth doesn't live in extremes. The path forward is not about destroying the system. It's about destroying the version of you that obeyed it. The rebel must evolve. The pain you carry, it must be transmuted. The rage in your chest, it must be channeled. The destruction you crave, it must become creation. This is the test of level 2. Can you stop screaming long enough to listen? Can you stop fighting long enough to build? Because rebellion is not the destination. It's the gate. A fiery, ruthless threshold between sleep and power. If you use it properly, you ignite transformation. If you don't, you become another angry ghost, a cautionary tale. So pause, breathe, and realize something powerful. You don't have to prove them wrong. You just have to prove yourself right. The war is not out there. The war is within. And when you realize that, you're ready to cross into the next level, the Seeker. Level 3, the Seeker. The fire has calmed, but the silence is louder than ever. You've torn down the old. You've broken the mask. You've walked away from the fake systems, fake friends, and fake identity. But now what? You're not who you were, but you're not yet who you're becoming. Welcome to the in-between. This is the domain of the Seeker, the void where the smoke has cleared, but the path ahead is still hidden in fog. And this is where most people turn back, because destruction is easy. Creation, that takes courage, that takes clarity, and clarity doesn't scream, it whispers. And so the Seeker searches, not for dopamine, not for distractions, but for meaning. They begin to look inward, deeply, painfully, without mercy. They begin to ask questions no one else dares to confront. Who am I beneath the roles? What do I believe when the noise is gone? What have I been running from all this time? Books become sacred. Solitude becomes medicine. Stillness becomes a weapon. You stop craving the applause. You start craving understanding, real understanding. You start to see through the illusions, the masks others still wear, the games they still play. You see it clearly, and it breaks your heart. But don't mistake this phase for enlightenment. It's not peace, it's purging. Because the Seeker still suffers, just in a different way. Now, you carry the weight of awareness. You can no longer pretend. You can no longer numb yourself the way you used to. And you can't go back. You're like a diver who's gone too deep. The pressure is real. The darkness is absolute. But somewhere in the abyss, you know the truth lives. This is where you start detaching from everything that isn't you. From the external definitions of success, from inherited beliefs, from trauma you thought was your personality. And one by one, the false layers begin to fall. But here's the danger of level 3. You can become addicted to seeking. You can become a collector of knowledge, a sponge for philosophies, a master of language but a beginner in action. You become so good at learning truth that you forget to live it. You quote ancient wisdom, but you don't embody it. You talk about alignment, but your habits still serve your fears. And so the seeker becomes a spiritual hoarder, drowning in insight, starving in experience. Because truth only becomes real when it's tested, not in a book, but in the battlefield of life. At some point, the seeker must make a choice. Will I keep learning, or will I finally become? Because there is a time for questions, and a time for conquest. You've uncovered who you are not. Now it's time to become who you are. And that requires something more dangerous than knowledge. It requires action, sacrifice, discipline. It requires becoming the kind of person who doesn't just understand the truth, but lives it so deeply that others feel it in your presence. That's when you step into the next level. When seeking ends and sharpening begins. When awareness is no longer a burden, but a weapon. That's when you become the warrior. Level 4, the warrior. This is where everything changes. The time for learning is over. The time for searching is done. You've seen enough. You've studied enough. You've sat in your mind long enough. Now the only question left is this. What will you do about it? Welcome to level 4, the warrior. The first level where the world stops caring what you know and starts demanding who you are. This is where your beliefs are tested, not in theory, not in safe spaces, but in fire. Because real transformation doesn't come from books. It comes from battle. It comes from the days when your hands shake, your heart breaks, and everything in you screams to quit. But you don't. The warrior doesn't talk. They move. They build. They bleed. And they do it all without applause. While others are still posting quotes, the warrior is living them. While others debate purpose, the warrior embodies it. Discipline becomes your oxygen. Sacrifice becomes your language. And pain? Pain becomes your compass. Because now, you understand something vital. The pain isn't a punishment. It's a passage. And every scar is a receipt for a part of you that needed to die. You stop negotiating with your weakness. You stop explaining yourself to cowards. You stop waiting for permission. You train when it's inconvenient. You commit when it's lonely. You act with precision when everyone else is distracted. And slowly, silently, relentlessly, you become dangerous. Not loud, not flashy, lethal. Because you forged something most people never will. Inner integrity. You say it, and you do it. You start it, and you finish it. You promise it, and you deliver it. Not for them, for you. You trust yourself now, because you've earned it. You don't collapse when the pressure comes. You rise. You don't hide when fear knocks. You open the door. You're no longer ruled by feelings. You're ruled by principles. You don't react. You respond. With calm, with force, with clarity. But understand this. The warrior still suffers. The warrior still bleeds. But now the suffering has direction. The bleeding has purpose. It's no longer senseless. It's sacred. Because every drop spilled, every sleepless night, every moment of isolation is forging something that cannot be bought, faked, or imitated. Power. Not the kind that comes from titles or attention, but the kind that radiates from the soul. You walk differently. You speak differently because you know what it took to stand here. You know what you had to lose to gain yourself. And now, something new awakens within you. Something that's been buried beneath the pain and the progress. Vision. And that vision begins to pull you forward. Not out of desperation, but out of alignment. You begin to see patterns others can't. You begin to build systems others won't. You stop reacting to life and begin reshaping it. That's when you know the warrior has done their job. The foundation is solid. The mind is disciplined. The spirit is grounded. And now it's time to rise higher. Because the next level is not about survival. It's about architecture. It's about designing your world instead of reacting to theirs. It's about strategy, silence, and sovereignty. The next level is for those who are ready to move from fighter to creator, from war to vision. Welcome to the threshold of level 5, the architect. Level 5, the architect. You bled, you burned, you broke, and through all of it, you built something stronger. Now you're not just standing, you're seeing, clearly, sharply, strategically. This is level 5, the architect, where the warrior's strength evolves into structure, where your fire becomes a forge, and you finally begin to shape your world instead of reacting to theirs. Because now you know, discipline is not just for survival. Sacrifice is not just for pain. Both are tools, blueprints in your hands. You stop chasing dopamine. You start chasing structure. You stop asking, what should I do today? You already know. It's written, planned, locked into your system. Because chaos is no longer seductive. It's the enemy. At level 5, you master something few ever understand. Designing your life with intention. You build systems that serve your goals. You eliminate anything that isn't aligned. Not because you're cold, but because you're focused. Your energy is no longer wasted on low-frequency noise. You've filtered your world, your inputs, your surroundings, your circle. Every habit is deliberate. Every hour accounted for. Every action aligned with a bigger vision. You no longer live by emotion. You live by execution. The architect doesn't just react to problems. They engineer solutions. They see 10 steps ahead. They understand consequences before they strike. Because they've already run the simulations. In silence. In solitude. In discipline. At this level, time bends around you. Not because you have more of it, but because you command it. While the average person drowns in distraction, you weaponize your focus. You build, refine, adapt, repeat. And while they search for motivation, you move from clarity. Because clarity at this level is everything. You know exactly who you are, exactly where you're going, exactly why you're doing it. No confusion, no second guessing, just calculated intensity. The architect doesn't need the world to understand. They need it to respond. So you craft your reality like a tactician. Not emotionally, but intelligently. You turn every setback into insight, every failure into feedback, every delay into a deeper level of patience and precision. Because now, you're not just building a life, you're designing a legacy. But here's the part they don't tell you. Level 5 comes with silence. It comes with distance. It comes with being misunderstood. Because the architect often moves in solitude. Not because they're isolated, but because they've outgrown the noise. You're not trying to be liked. You're not chasing validation. You're not arguing with the blind. You're busy building something eternal. And what you build here will either become your throne or your tomb. That's the razor's edge of level 5. Power is in your hands now. What you do with it, that's what separates the temporary from the timeless. But if you stay grounded, if you stay aligned, if you stay disciplined in the face of distraction, you'll step through the final door, the last level, the one beyond ego, beyond control, beyond even the architect's blueprint, the source. Level 6, the source. You've fought through the illusions, you've rebelled, you've sought, you've disciplined the mind, forged the will, mastered the game, and now there's nowhere else to climb. You've built the body, trained the thoughts, designed the life. But something deeper calls, not louder, quieter. Something beneath the ambition, beneath the strategy, beneath the very self you've worked so hard to master. It whispers, you are not the builder. You are not the mind. You are not even the warrior. You are the source. And if you're still, if you're silent long enough to feel it, you'll realize the final truth. Everything you were seeking, you already are. This is not enlightenment. This is annihilation. The total obliteration of everything false you ever clung to. Because the final level is not about adding more. It's about removing everything that was never you. Every title, every trauma, every fear, every goal driven by emptiness. Gone. Not because you don't care, but because you've transcended caring. You've tasted control, and now you surrender it. Not in weakness, but in absolute power. Because the source controls not through force, but through alignment. There's nothing to prove, nothing to conquer. You don't need to dominate the battlefield because you created it. You don't need to manipulate reality because you are reality. This level is pure awareness, the observer behind the mask, the calm in the chaos, the silence behind the scream. You see through duality now. Success and failure, both teachers. Pain and pleasure, both portals. You realize the storm and the stillness were never separate. They were both tools for awakening. This is where intention becomes manifestation. Not because you wish for it, but because you become it. Thought no longer races. It obeys. Emotion no longer hijacks. It flows. The body no longer resists. It follows the divine signal with discipline and ease. And the world, it bends, not because you force it, but because your vibration commands it. You don't act from fear. You don't move from lack. Every breath, every decision, every step is made from presence, from power, from purity. The source doesn't need to be seen. Its presence alone shifts everything. People feel it. They don't understand it, but they feel it. Because the source has become untouchable, not out of distance, but out of depth. The source is the fire and the stillness. It is the architect, the warrior, the seeker, the rebel, the sleepwalker, all mastered, all integrated, all transcended. And now, you no longer chase the path. You are the path. And so we return, not back to the beginning, but forward to the center, to where the real journey begins. Because once you've touched the source within you, you don't go back to survival. You rise, you create, you lead, not from ego, but from essence, not from fear, but from frequency. And that is the final truth. You were never meant to become something. You were meant to remember everything you already are, the source. This journey was never about becoming something new. It was about burning away everything false until only the truth remained. Let's remember what it took to get here. You began at level 1, the Sleepwalker. Blind, obedient, number trapped in a loop you didn't question, wearing a mask you didn't choose. You existed, but you weren't alive. Then came level 2, the Rebel, the Firestarter, the Destroyer. You broke free from the cage, but in your rage, you nearly built another. You screamed for freedom before you understood what it meant to hold it. And so you evolved into level 3, the Seeker, the quiet phase, the reflective void. You turned inward. You studied, questioned, isolated, obsessed. But knowledge alone wasn't enough, because knowing truth means nothing unless you live it. That led to level 4, the Warrior, where words ended and action began, where your body became a tool, your mind became a weapon, and your habits became your religion. You learned to bleed with purpose, to suffer with pride, and to fight with honor. From there, you rose into level 5, the Architect. You stopped reacting and started building. You turned clarity into command, systems into shields. You filtered the noise, controlled your energy, and created a life by design, not by accident. But even that wasn't the summit. Because eventually, the Architect must dissolve. The Warrior must bow. The mind must surrender. And what's left is level 6, the Source. Pure awareness, infinite stillness. Not the fighter, not the builder, not even the thinker, but the force behind it all. You became the silence behind the chaos, the observer behind the mask. And in that stillness, you remembered what they made you forget. You were never lost. You were never broken. You were always the Source. So now the question is no longer, who will you become? The real question is, will you live aligned with who you already are? Will you carry this truth with discipline? Will you walk this path with power? Will you rise again and again when life tests what you've built? Because knowing is not enough. Integration is everything. And if you truly understand what's been said here, then your life from this moment forward will never look the same again. You've awakened. Now act like it. To the returning GrimFace warriors, thank you for walking this path with fire in your chest. To those just waking up, welcome to the movement. This is not just a channel. This is not a brand. This is a resurrection. Subscribe, comment, and share this with someone who's ready to wake the hell up. Because the war isn't coming. It's already here. And we don't need more noise. We need more warriors. Stay dangerous, stay conscious, and never stop rising.